Hi again, viewers. This is What Did You? What did you say? What did you do? What did you think? And bringing you the last commentary video of this little series about Spacelords, and to highlight important parts and to conclude things. Because the way things sort of started out here is we talked about my overall impressions, it being a game of chances, and the equilibrium is in progression system within the game, and so I like to conclude it with this video about the MMR, the matchmaking rating that you have to uh, incur throughout the entire play of the game. Um, which relates directly to the difficulty that the game will present itself to you. Um, there is no explanation about the MMR in your quick guide of information. The only way you're going to find out information about the MMR is to look it up in, the community website. It's for the game Spacelords, as well as blog sites, as well as other video creators which have covered the point. I wanted to try to just summarize the point in my own words, as well as highlight to me the ridiculous nature of the way they have this MMR set and the difficulty that the game presents to you. Um, it's to me absurd. I've referenced it in the overall impression of the game, as well as like a commentary review I gave when I turned from 198 to 199 level to earn a fort skill maximum of 20. Um, your MMR is affected by how well you do in a match. So if you win matches, your MMR will go up 1% for each match you win. It will go down for each match that you lose 1%. Your MMR, your matchmaking rating, will affect the difficulty level of a game. That any match that you play. If you're playing solo, your personal matchmaking rating will be the only factor. If you play in the regular adventure, as they could reference it, in which case you have other players join you, it's going to take their MMR and average it with yours to give you a match difficulty percentage. So theoretically, more than likely, if I match with some people, it might bring me at an MMR of say 40%. A few people have done better, a few people have done worse, whatever the situation is. Let's say my MMR for the match is 40. That's is always a chance as to what your actual match level difficulty will be, even if you join a match as an antagonist or if you join a match as a raider. It doesn't, it's going to average out everybody's score within the match to determine the match level difficulty. It really doesn't. It affects you either way that you play. If you're playing as an antagonist, it's going to affect how difficult the enemy AI is to the raid people who are playing as a raider. It affect the boss as far as how much damage or how aggressive it may be against the other players that you're trying to antagonize against. Um, as well as the fact that the further you level up in the game and the better you are with it, playing it as an antagonist, the game seems to want to decrease the level of the AI competency as well as the ad count, and because it thinks that you're more capable now. So it can actually be to your detriment in times where it's not enough to occupy the other people playing the game as raiders, and they can just gang up on you anytime you decide to want to antagonize a situation. Um, but therein lies the reason. A very particular point that's interesting about this game is that at the moment, because of the way they have the MMR difficulty sort of set, it behooves players to lose from periodically to keep their MMR low so that the game is tolerable to play, because it constantly would get harder and harder and harder and harder. And that's just the absurd nature of it. I mean, the majority of the community seems to fluctuate between 35 and say 50% MMR, roughly between 30, give or take a few, so it could be 30 55, whatever. But there's a sort that seems to be the mid range of where people fluctuate, which is still a failing grade, so to speak, or average of how many times you win or lose. I mean, typically in these types of systems that evaluate you with these scales, if you're performing 70% or better, that's good. But in this game here, you're very not likely to find an individual with MMR, above 70%. They exist, sure, but it's by no means, from my experience, any kind of nature of the general sense of the word. Um, and so therefore people will play as an antagonist and purposely lose. There's ways in which you can antagonize a mission and still maintain XP and still give the win to the people who are playing as a raider. Nonetheless, it's a sad point that they don't actually increase the difficulty scale, just stretch it out. Whereas what you would receive at, say, MMR 40, you would receive that kind of level of difficulty at MMR 80. So that at least people just starting the game, people playing the game can find, a measure of competency that they can relate to. It's very difficult to relate to, only having a 35% competency or 40 some odd percent competency when you're trying your very best all the way through for 200 some odd levels, and the best you can ever maintain is about a 40% win loss ratio. So it's I mean, it's their way of fairly assessing you based on their scale of how difficult they want the game to be. Again, I feel like it's a lack of confidence on their own material in maintaining an audience, and trying to appease, everybody, including individuals who want a never-ending challenge that constantly keeps them handicapped. I mean, so, by nature, you'll always be challenged. It doesn't matter how competent you are, the environment, the game, the difficulty will always be more capable than you or any entire team. Unless you coordinate and work things properly and you have some degree of chance and luck on your side. Um, but I found my own way with trying to be an antagonist. In which case, I've got a videos examples of it where I've antagonized with various different characters. More often than not, it's been Daldrin here, where I'll go ahead and just I'll let them win. I'll try to communicate in nonverbals. The community has a sort of consensual nonverbal language motion where you jump around and in one spot generally and don't aggress on the other players, and you can non-verbally communicate to them that you're a friendly antagonist and you're like you don't mind losing the match. If they're being cool with you, they won't attack you back. A lot of times they think it gives them the right to attack you and just kill you whenever they. If you're being extremely passive to it, you don't mind, then let them take you out. If it bothers you, then don't respond. If you want to engage back with them, it will add XP to your situation. You can do it to the point where they almost lose or they lose. You could practice various different things from time to time, for the times for when you do want to try to win. I kind of put a moral code in the point of doing to others as you have done to you. I come in and jump around in one spot, and if they kill me 3, 4, 5 times, because a lot of people don't understand the nonverbal gestures or the nonverbal uh, aspects of jumping in one spot and not attacking back or defending yourself. Unfortunately, I might, I might decide to go ahead and give them the fight that they're looking for. Because people do play this game for the antagonist aspect of gameplay. That 4 versus 1 to 1 versus 4. Some people really want to have an antagonist engage against them in their team of raiders. A lot of people, really look forward to that. I don't. To me, it decreases my chance of succeeding, and I don't want any more chances against me than necessary, if at all. But I try to engage in the game and play the game productively more often than just letting the team win to keep my MMR at a tolerable rate of difficulty. But again, the difficulty for this game will exceed most anticipations or expectations. I mean, right out the box, the every aspect of to me, ways of handicapping a player or things to work against a player since video game history has come about, they've employed in this. I mean, without missing a beat. I mean, the enemy AI is very quick to take advantage of any disposition you have, whether you're standing in the spawn zone or not. The enemy will kill you instantly. If you're in a spawn spot, they'll literally spawn enemies that can kill you instantly. I mean, and they won't hesitate. And unless you have the right action at the right moment in time, and your chances of having it are very slim, especially given your knowledge set or your placement or your awareness, you're dead. There's all kinds of insta kill things within the game that will instantly just take you out and kill you. There's you know and then the multitude of enemies that can overwhelm you at any given time. Enemies can always outshoot you, in my opinion, with weapons more often than not. And even still, it's only but so many enemies you can take out at any one point in time, regardless of how powerful you are. You could, of course, become more powerful by leveling up and then keeping your MMR really low, but you wind up running across other players who've kept their MMR low or are in a low MMR because they literally, that is their skill set. It's not like they're purposely trying to be there. That's the it and the all. That's as good as they're going to get. And when you run across that, you don't succeed in a lot of these missions very well because you can't do it on your own, in my opinion. When the game hasn't, when you're not playing solo in the training mode solo. So yeah, and of course, when you get into the higher MMRs, you still may be dealing with degrees of competency or incompetency because a lot of times when new players first start the game, I can't remember where they started me out with my MMR, but you're automatically starting at an MMR that is far beyond your capability, and you're in an uphill climb, and more than likely they're going to match you with one or two particular individuals that may have been playing the game for some time, which will help you. But you could be in a team full of individuals that do not know much of what's going on, and constantly be in a very grinding and perpetual state of dealing with one mission until you rank up to unlock the next one, and the next one won't unlock until you complete the previous one successfully. So, there's a lot to take into account as far as the MMR and the difficulty of the game. This video here and commentaries are going to be a lot shorter than the previous ones, and because it's just really more of a wrap up about that particular point. I've mentioned other aspects about the difficulty in some of the previous videos, just being, like I said, just being just over the top and absurd, and you need to stretch this out to make it more agreeable for new players, as well as more friendly and enjoyable just to play the game, because your difficulty will impact just how successful you will be at obtaining various different blueprints, the repetition of that if you have to remake weapons, as well as obtaining them if you have to go for one and it requires you to have to win a match 3 times in a row and deal with the odds of having an antagonist or not having one, and whether they're really trying to stop you or not. But again, there's a lot of ways to play the antagonist. There are a lot of ways the community and the people that I've seen play an antagonist play it. Don't take the antagonist for granted. My best suggestion is do not antagonize the antagonist until the antagonist attacks you. But of course, defend your teammates, if you choose to. I've seen situations where antagonists, like I'm playing in as an antagonist, and I've communicated to everyone that I'm a friendly antagonist, and maybe say 2 out of 4 get the point that are playing as raiders. The other 2 don't. They attack me and kill me. Well, if I decide to want to kind of fight back to earn some XP but still let them win, I've seen plenty of times where the other 2 raiders won't attack me because they know I'm friendly. They know I'm going to let them win if they don't fuck up on their own or mess up on the match on their own, and because you can lose at your own fault, of course. And also, to me, attacking them and killing their other teammates does decrease their lives when it comes to playing in a mission. But the thing is that more than likely, if they're halfway decent and know what's going on, they'll still win the mission. They'll know the antagonist, if they're a good antagonist and they're being friendly, will respect their life count and not attack them at critical moments so that they can succeed. So there's just a lot of ways you can play it. A lot of ways people will play it. So just keep your mind open to those possibilities, and but don't hate it as best you can against antagonists who are there to win, because you can gain blue points by winning as an antagonist. You can gain your extra gold, and you do of course earn more XP all the way through by winning, but at the same time you're increasing your MMR. And if you're not trying to maintain your equilibrium, you can continue to play as an antagonist throughout the entire game. Just realize that you're going to be earning XP at a far less rate, exponentially. If you only play as an antagonist and making 0 XP. Again, if you want to go in one direction or the other with this, it'd be my best advice to do so after you've gotten to level 200 and opened up, all of uh, your passive skills, all of your character cards that are available to you, um, as well as opening up your maximum forward skill. And then you can kind of make your own way with it, in my opinion. But yeah, that's the best way I can sum it all up to you. And just realize your MMR does not affect your equilibrium. Your equilibrium does not affect your MMR. MMR is just a difficulty setting based off of how well you have done in the game, how many missions you have won versus how many you've lost, and your match MMR will only be set uh, based off of an average of the players in the game and their MMR ranking. So it's very possible to go into a match, even though you have it where you feel like it's comfortable with the gameplay, say at 30%, but because of everybody else's MMR, you're running into a game at 50%. So, I've tried it where I brought my MMR all the way down to 17% to compensate for other players who are doing well, and it didn't serve me. It didn't do me any good, to be honest with you, because I was a lot of times matchmade with individuals who really aren't very good at the game, and then other times I was matchmade in a way where even if I had a higher MMR, it probably would have averaged out to be about the same anyway. So you know, it seems to be comfortable for me to sort of keep my MMR between say 30 and 45% roughly. Um, you know, on my own, trying not to regulate my MMR by losing antagonist matches. I typically have maintained my MMR between 46 and 50%, but it's very difficult. Most players can't handle the game at that level, and regardless of how well I can't do it on my own as a raider. So it's an interesting gambit. Take what you can of what I've said and what you may acquire knowledge from various different blog sites, other videos, and the community page for Spacelords. And they do give here in the news patch notes information, which can help let you know how they may be adjusting this or not. And in my opinion, they do hot fixes and things like that to the game, because each day I've played it, each week I've noticed something different about the way the enemies and the difficulty can be or not be, also too based on my level and everything else. So there's a multitude of factors that are taken into account as to how difficult the game will or will not be for you as a player, as well as your skill set. But again, I do hope that somebody in the devs out there are watching these things, and they take note to try to give a greater range so that players feel more successful in their accomplishments in the game by allowing this difficulty that one might feel at MMR 40 at MMR 80. So that the majority of the populace is that's playing the game is at least receiving what is considered to be a passing grade. So yeah, so thank you again for viewing, and good luck with this game of chances. Be patient with it if you find it to be enjoyable. Realize there are some pay-to-play aspects as far as leveling and gaining XP, and opening up your skins and that you might want to have with various different characters. In which case you'd have to use real money and Mercury points for that, and these price ranges can seriously vary. you know. But again, this is a very creative and interesting game, so I will be playing it still. But I'm glad I'm past the grind. I'm glad I'm past the point to be where I am. And like I said, the real push in this game is to get to level 200, and because then the doors really open for you to know just how capable you may be in this more than capable environment, because you, like I said, you'll always be handicapped. But yeah, thanks again, viewers, and I'll catch you all next time. And again, this is to preserve the memory, and take care and enjoy.